Take a close look at this satellite image. At first glance it looks like nothing but a barren, dry desert. Yet right in the middle there's a strange structure. Zoom in and it becomes clear. It looks exactly like an aircraft carrier. That huge, flat warship countries use as a floating airbase. Runways, fighter jets, weaponry, all of it. But the strange thing is, it's not in the middle of an ocean. It's sitting on sand, right in the heart of a desert. Now zoom out and check the surroundings. This image was taken over the Taklamakan Desert in northwest China. An ordinary aircraft carrier operates in the restless waters of the sea, but the environment here is brutally harsh in a different way. Instead of water, there is only sand, and the temperatures and hostile conditions can be as extreme as at sea. By area, the Taklamakan is the world's second largest sandy desert. From space, it looks like a huge eye of sand, an unfamiliar part of our planet. So why, in such a remote, lonely desert, would the Chinese military build something that looks like an aircraft carrier? That's a natural question. Over the past few decades, China's carrier program has advanced at breakneck speed. 15 years ago, they didn't have a single aircraft carrier. Now their navy has 3 carriers, one of which they built themselves. Yet the ship-like structure seen in the satellite images does not match the design of China's actual carriers. Instead, the layout closely resembles American carrier designs. Think of the modern U.S. Navy Gerald R. Ford-class carriers as a reference, and you'll see a surprising resemblance with this desert mock-up. A little farther away, you can also see a straight line cutting through the desert. Look closely, and you'll realize it's actually a railway line. Right beside that track sits another large structure. This one doesn't look like an aircraft carrier. It more closely resembles an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer from the United States. The shape, the bridge, the funnel, even the missile launcher positions are copied almost exactly. It's clear these are not real ships. They're flat mock-ups or replicas built on land. What's surprising is that older satellite images show the process. In 2020, someone first laid out dense grids and tall poles to sketch the ship's outline. Later, the outline was made more pronounced until it looked unmistakably like a carrier. There's another odd detail. The railway that runs through these mock ships is very curvy and unusually shaped. The surrounding plain is flat with no natural obstacles, yet the track doesn't run straight. It twists and turns, taking sudden bends and sharp right turns. Why was the track laid out like this? The plot thickens if you follow that railway. To the north, the track ends at a base where there's a large hangar, some buildings and several rail cars. Heading south, the line simply disappears into the desert, as if it vanishes into thin air. What's the purpose of such a strange rail line? It's still not entirely clear. Now consider this. Where are the real warships? Interestingly, actual U.S. carriers and surface combatants regularly operate near this desert region. The U.S. Navy routinely patrols the South China Sea, and Chinese warships are there too. There have been close encounters. Once a Chinese destroyer came so close to a U.S. ship that a collision nearly occurred. These incidents show that tensions between the U.S. and China near Chinese waters have been rising for a long time. At the core of that tension are 2 issues: the South China Sea and Taiwan. China claims nearly the entire South China Sea and has built artificial islands and military bases there. The U.S. counters by sending warships to assert freedom of navigation. The second dispute is over Taiwan. Although Taiwan runs its own government, China regards it as a breakaway province and has repeatedly threatened to seize it by force if necessary. The U.S. has made it clear that it would not accept such a forcible takeover and maintains a posture of deterrence, keeping naval forces on alert around Taiwan. Both disputes could escalate into major conflicts in the future. Because of that possibility, China appears to be turning parts of the desert into a training ground. These desert structures are actually training targets. They want to test how accurately their missiles can strike American warships. Many analysts believe the tall metal poles installed with these mock-ups are fitted with sensors or radar reflectors to collect data on missile impacts and to train radar-guided targeting. Other satellite images suggest that China's missiles have successfully struck these mock targets in tests. But real warships don't sit still. They move. That's likely why these mock carriers are mounted on rail-mounted platforms, to simulate movement, to mimic the sudden course changes and speed shifts an actual carrier might make during an engagement. Along the railway, there's another model carrier, a more advanced, 3-dimensional structure studded with many poles. A scale model of this system was shown at one of China's defense exhibitions, and Chinese company CASIC is reported to have developed this moving, mock-up system. The crooked design of the rail line is probably meant to imitate evasive maneuvers, the way a carrier might abruptly change course or accelerate to avoid an attack. Satellite imagery also indicates China has conducted live fire tests against these targets and recorded accurate hits. Using fake targets for training isn't new. In 2014, Iran created a replica of a U.S. aircraft carrier and launched missiles at it. More as a demonstration than realistic training. Militaries around the world use mock-ups of enemy platforms in exercises. The U.S. sometimes flies replicas of Chinese J-20 fighters or Russian Su-27s for training purposes. But the concerning point here is that China isn't just testing ordinary weapons. They seem to be developing systems intended to change the strategic balance in a potential conflict. U.S. analysts point to a particular Chinese missile, the DF-21D, a ballistic missile designed specifically to destroy moving aircraft carriers. This missile is launched to very high altitude, then re-enters the atmosphere at extremely high speed. During descent, its warhead separates from the main missile and can maneuver to alter its trajectory, enabling it to strike relatively small or moving targets accurately. Experts say this kind of weapon is very difficult to defend against. Unlike a torpedo, which requires an enemy submarine to get close to the carrier, these missiles can be launched from Chinese soil and strike distant ships. U.S. air defenses may struggle to respond in time to such a fast, long-range attack. And because the warhead can unpredictably change course near the end of its flight, taking it down becomes nearly impossible. By openly conducting these tests in the desert, China is likely sending a powerful message. They want everyone to know they possess this capability. If they can make that claim credible, the balance of power shifts in their favor. The U.S. may think twice before operating carriers near Chinese waters, since the risk of a missile strike would make those massive ships vulnerable. In short, China appears to be building these fake warships in the desert to develop and test long-range strike methods against U.S. carriers. Even without firing the missile in combat, the existence of such weapons amplifies China's power projection in flashpoints like the South China Sea and Taiwan. China's strategy is, in many ways, mysterious, but also deliberate. They are creating training environments and testing systems intended to complicate the tactics of any potential opponent. Whether these measures will deter conflict, provoke further escalation, or change naval strategy worldwide remains to be seen.